You know, there are places that keep silence in a special way, not like in a forest or an empty apartment, but as if the silence itself were a living creature. It listens. It waits. I'm sitting in a chair by the fireplace, even though it's the middle of summer and there is no fireplace. It just feels cozier to think this way. In my lap, I'm holding an old dictaphone cassette, so old that the plastic has yellowed and smells of dampness like a forgotten basement. I've been holding it in my hands for an hour now, probably. I can't bring myself to listen to it, but I'll tell you about it. Maybe together it won't be so frightening. It all started when I bought this house, a lonely ranch a mile off Highway 16 in North Dakota. The real estate agent, an elderly woman with a face like a baked apple, told me the previous owner was an eccentric ham radio enthusiast. He disappeared 3 years ago, just went out one evening, left the door unlocked, and dissolved into the prairie. No one searched for him. He had no family, no friends, just electricity debts. The price was laughably low, and I'm a writer. I needed exactly that: silence, oblivion, and the absence of neighbors. The perfect place to drink myself to the bottom and finally squeeze out my second book. The first one was a success, but you know how it is. Success weighs on your shoulders heavier than failure. On the very first evening, I found that room. Not in the sense of the house, in the sense of my entire life. The room that changed everything. It was a back extension, some kind of workshop. The walls were covered with soundproofing foam. You know, those gray ribbed squares. Wires everywhere, soldering irons, empty boxes of radio components. It looked like the lair of a mad engineer from a 70s movie. But the main thing was in the center. An enormous machine, taking up half the room. It looked like an old tube radio transmitter crossed with an oscilloscope, and an antenna on the roof, 10 meters tall, aimed at the sky like the skeleton of an umbrella. On the table lay a journal, not a notebook, an observation journal divided into columns: date, time, frequency, signal duration, and content. The last entries broke off on one single date, the very same date when the owner disappeared. I started flipping backwards. At first, there were ordinary technical notes: background static, thunderstorm interference, ionospheric reflection. But the further back I went, the stranger the entries became. 3:12 a.m., frequency 1420 MHz, signal clean, a voice claims to be watching me from the corner of the room. 3:45 p.m., same frequency, a child's voice, describes what I eat for breakfast. It mocks me. 11:59 p.m., frequency unknown, dial unstable. The voice said, 40 days remain. I thought, of course, schizophrenia, a severe case. A man spent years sitting alone, listening to the noise of the universe, and his brain started filling in what wasn't there. A common auditory hallucination. But back then, I hadn't yet found the cassette. It was lying at the bottom of a cardboard box labeled with a single letter, F, no date, no explanation. I found an old cassette player on the shelf covered in dust and solder. I put in batteries that miraculously hadn't leaked, inserted the cassette, pressed play. Silence. Hissing. I was about to turn it off when suddenly I heard a voice. Not even a voice, a whisper crawling straight under my skull. You're listening. Good. My name is Frank. If you're hearing this, it means I've already vanished. I'm recording this for whoever takes my place. You are not just a listener. You are now the receiver. The machine you see before you, it's not a transmitter. It's a portal. And I made a mistake. I opened it on the frequency that must never be opened. Then a pause, a long one, about 10 seconds, and the same voice, but a different tone, constricted, terrified. Listen carefully. There are rules, 3 of them. First, never record the voices onto tape. They don't like it. They want only to be heard. As soon as you try to preserve their words, they will begin preserving you. Second, if you hear your name, do not respond. Don't nod. Don't even think about the fact that you heard it. They feed on confirmation. Your fear is a signal by which they find you, like bats in the dark. Third, The most dangerous frequency is 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line, the frequency at which the universe falls silent to hear itself. And that which lives in this silence, it is not from our galaxy. It is older than the stars, and it is lonely. The cassette clicked and stopped there. I did something stupid. Oh, what a stupid thing I did. I turned on the machine. You know that childhood feeling when you're left alone in a dark room and it seems like someone is breathing under the bed? Here, when the tubes inside the apparatus lit up with a warm, amber glow and a deep, infrasonic hum began to flow from the speakers, every object in the room seemed to shift a millimeter away from me. The room became larger and colder. I started turning the frequency dial. At first, just the hiss of space, pulsars, the crackle of storms somewhere over the Atlantic. Radio is the sound of antiquity, the echo of the Big Bang. And then, the signal became clear, absolutely clear, as if someone had turned on a microphone in a sterile chamber. And through that clarity, I heard a voice. It didn't come from the speakers. It appeared right in the center of my head, bypassing my eardrums. It said my name, not the one in my passport, the one my mother used to call me when I was very little. She died 15 years ago. No one on earth knew that name except me. I remember how you were afraid of thunderstorms and hid under the blanket. I see this chair. I see the cassette in your hand. It's useless. You won't remember me. I recoiled from the panel. The first rule, I had broken all the rules at once. I listened. I recorded. I was afraid. And it learned my secret name. And then the lights went out. Not with the flick of a switch, but like in an old television. The image collapsed into a single bright dot in the center. And then there was darkness. And in that darkness, a sound began. It grew. Thousands of voices layered on top of each other, as if someone had turned on all the radio stations in the world at once and turned up the sharpness. I rushed for the door, but tripped over a wire. I fell to my knees. Around me, in that pitch-black darkness, some shadows were moving. Not silhouettes, clots of denser darkness. They didn't touch me, but I felt their presence physically, like a change in pressure on an airplane. My ears plugged so badly I thought my eardrums would burst. I don't remember how I got out of the workshop. I lost consciousness. I woke up on the floor in the living room. Sunlight streamed through the window. Birds were singing. No shadows. No voices. I looked at my hands, peeling paint from the doorframe under my fingernails, bruises on my knees. So, it wasn't a dream. I should have left that very day, locked the house, and never come back, like Frank. But I'm a writer, and writers are sick people. For us, understanding is more important than surviving. I needed to know what it was, and as it turned out later, they also wanted me to know. I started keeping my own records. During the day, the machine was silent, just a piece of iron, a dead electro-vacuum circuit. But at 3 a.m, it woke up on its own. I didn't need to flip any switches. The needles on the instruments began to tremble without any current. I set an alarm to just sit and listen, like a damned priest at the devil's confession. The voices told me about things no one knows. They spoke in formulas and feelings simultaneously. They explained to me what dark matter is. It's not particles. It's a shroud. The universe we see is just foam on the surface of an infinite ocean of consciousness, unbound by atoms. And that ocean is populated by thoughts. And those thoughts are bored. They want to play. On the 4th night, I stopped being afraid. I began asking questions. At first, mentally, then aloud. The biggest mistake. When I asked, "What do you want?" they answered in unison. "We want you to tell. We are a story. We want to be told." Everyone who hears us becomes part of the narrative. Your friend Frank is broadcasting with us now. Join us. That's when I became truly terrified. Not for my body, for my soul. They didn't want my death. Death is the end of the signal. They needed an eternal repeater, a consciousness trapped in a feedback loop, endlessly retelling their story on the radio band. Frank didn't disappear. Frank became part of the ether. His voice is probably still flying somewhere between Earth and the constellation Cygnus, distorted by cosmic dust, immortal and infinitely alone. Last night, at 3:12 in the morning, I woke up because my phone, lying on the nightstand and not even plugged into the charger, made a soft, static crackle, and a voice, one I could never mistake, whispered from the speaker, "Thank you for the story. We know you're not finished yet. We'll wait." So, I'm sitting here now, in this empty room, telling you all of this for a reason, not for likes or views. I'm doing this because sometimes the only way to lift a curse is to pass it on, to share the story. And if you've watched this video to the end, if you're hearing my voice right now, perhaps your phone just made a strange sound. Don't check it. And please, don't look at your shadow. It might wave at you.